Hello everyone, Dr. Brazier here. This is your 7th and final quiz answers video. Question 1. The idea behind this methodical orientation is to demystify the world of mental health, familiarize clients with what their treatment will be, and provide them with a psychological anchor in the form of a real person who will act as their advocate, support, and contact person. Question 2. It says, which types of crimes do police officers typically deal with? Is it instrumental, expressive, or both? So the answer is found here. It is commonly thought that patrol officers concern themselves mainly with instrumental crimes, such as theft, robbery, and assault. They obviously do, but the fact is that police officers deal with a multitude of expressive kinds of crime also, in which individuals pose a serious threat to themselves or others because of their own anger, fear, vulnerability, depression, or lack of emotional control. Question 3. While most of these training components are in a lecture discussion format, 2 of them are not. These 2 components are considered absolutely critical in the training of police officers who do crisis intervention with the mentally ill. They are 1. Verbal de-escalation and diffusing, and 2. The client fishbowl. Question 4. When dealing with someone with BPD, it's important to set clear limits, to structure specific therapeutic goals, to provide empathic support, to validate the client's actions as understandable, to model a safe environment, and to caringly confront manipulative and maladaptive behavior. But no special considerations other than those normally given to other clients should be given to those with BPD. Question 5. Since the enactment of the Federal Community Mental Health Act of 1963, the major responsibility for treatment of the mentally ill has fallen on community mental health centers. Question 6. By far and away, the vast majority of crisis counseling is now handled via telephone. Question 7. Research indicates that crisis hotlines are probably as good as other types of face-to-face counseling, at least in terms of crisis situations. They're particularly attractive, by the way, to young people, old people, and people who do not have financial access to professional therapists. Question 8. First, psychological contact needs to be made, and this endeavor takes precedence over anything else the phone worker does. Question 9. If the phone worker detects the potential for physical injury, so potential suicide, homicide, then closed-ended questions meant to obtain information specific to the safety of the client is what should be asked, not only without hesitation, but also with empathic understanding that clearly depicts the worker's overriding concern for and valuing of the client. These questions typically start with do, have, and are, and in phone dialogues, they should be put directly and assertively to the client. So not open-ended questions, but closed-ended ones specifically focused around the client's immediate safety. Question 10. People with histrionic personality disorder move from crisis to crisis. They have shallow depth of character and are extremely ego-involved. Question 11. People with schizotypal behavior have feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. They have strange ideas, behaviors, and appearances. Question 12. Although disturbed callers have many feelings that have been submerged from awareness, which is a coping strategy for trauma, as we all know, it's not the best strategy to attempt to uncover these feelings. Don't go digging around for that stuff. The caller is being besieged by too many feelings and needs to find a way to get them in control, focusing on here and now issues that are concrete and reality-oriented is the preferred mode of operation for crisis workers. Do not elicit more feelings with open-ended questions, such as, can you tell me more about that? Instead, use calming interventions that force the person to order thinking in small, realistic bits of detail. Remember, this is very different from that deeper, long-term therapeutic work. This is in crisis situations when you're intervening. Question 13. A why question is never appropriate when you're talking about paranoid delusions because of the defensive reaction that it may elicit in a caller, especially a paranoid. Question 14. When dealing with the disturbed caller, the overriding thesis is save the body before the mind. Question 15. Burnout is not generally perceived as a crisis event because its onset is slow and insidious. Question 16. Which of the following is not listed in your textbook as a foundation block of burnout? So isolation, role overload, role conflict, or extreme empathy. As you can see in the column on the right-hand side, it's extreme empathy that is not listed there. And as I said, empathy is a superpower that needs to be trained up. There is, in my opinion, no such thing as too much empathy, because how can you have too much of a superpower? But there is a need to train up empathy so it doesn't lead to compassion fatigue and burnout. And the way to do that is to use self-compassion practices and unburdening practices. Question 17. Burnout is not a disease, and the medical model is not appropriate, not an appropriate analytical model. True. And you can see that from the text there. Question 18. At a state level, burnout may be periodic or situational. Over the long term, however, such state events contribute mightily to anticipatory anxiety, which, if not dealt with, can precipitate total burnout. Question 19. What are the 4 R's of SAMHSA's trauma-informed care? They are realize, so understand the person's behavior in terms of trauma survival. Realize that what they're doing makes sense in context of what they survived. Recognize, so notice signs, effects of unhealed trauma. Respond, so take trauma experiences into consideration and use evidence-based practices to create environmental safety. And resist re-traumatization, which is such a huge piece of competent trauma treatment. Resist re-traumatization. Don't go diving into details of the trauma before safety and stabilization have been consistently reached and maintained. So resist re-traumatization. Recognize practices that resist re-wounding clients. And last but not least, question 20. Which of the components of self-compassion, according to Dr. Kristin Neff, helps dispel shame by remembering that others have also experienced mistakes, poor choices, and suffering? You can see in the bottom right-hand corner of this diagram, it is common humanity. All right, thank you for your attention to this presentation. I hope it's been helpful.